Hi, welcome once again to our YouTube channel. Thanks for subscribing to our channel. We really appreciate you. And in this particular series, we shall be treating past questions from the Jamb collection. So we'll be looking at a series of questions that have been asked by Jamb over the years, and we'll be giving well-detailed explanations to all of the questions as we come across them. I will implore you to try as much as possible to pay keen attention to all of the explanations that will be given in tackling all of the questions. I wish you success in your exam, and please don't forget to subscribe to our channel. Thank you very much. Hi, welcome to our Jamb series. Today we'll be taking questions from the 2013 Jamb biology questions. So that is where we are picking it up from. So let us dive straight into it. So this is our question 1, which is a typical Jamb question. So we'll move straight to question 2. And now the question 2 there says, the process in which complex substances are broken down into simpler ones is referred to as A. Anabolism, B. Catabolism, C. Metabolism, and D. Tropism. So that is what our question looks like, and so we are going to try to answer that now. So for us to answer this question, we need to understand what all of these concepts are talking about. Talking about the options that we have there: anabolism, catabolism, metabolism, and then tropism. So let us quickly give us short notes on them. Now, anabolism. Anabolism is actually seen as a synthetic phase, a synthesis phase, or a build-up phase. A build-up phase. Why? Because it helps to build up complex materials, or let's put it this way. It uses simpler or basic materials to build or generate complex molecules. So complex materials are generated, or they are produced, they are built from the synthesis of simpler substances. So anabolism is actually the build-up of complex materials using simple substances. And then we have the second process to be catabolism. Catabolism. Now, catabolism on its own is the degradative phase. The degradative or the breakdown phase. Degradative or breakdown phase. That is what the catabolism is. Why? Because it breaks down complex materials into smaller, simpler substances. So that is what catabolism is talking about. And then when we look at the third one there, metabolism. Let me put this as in a reaction. Metabolism is actually the sum of anabolism. Is the sum of anabolism and catabolism. So when we look at it, I explain metabolism as the sum of all enzyme catalyzed reactions taking place in a cell. The sum of all enzyme catalyzed reactions taking place in a cell. That is what metabolism is. And then we have the last option there, tropism. Talking about response to stimuli in plants. Response to stimuli in plants. So those are the meanings of all the options that we have there. And looking at this now, we discover that the answer to that question for question 2 is catabolism, which happens to be option B. So Number 1 is typical of Jamb. Number 2, we said is option B. Let's move to number 3 now. The organ which is sensitive to light in euglena is A. Gullet, B. Flagellum, C. Chloroplast, and D. Eye spot. The gullet is the part of the organism euglena that helps to permit food into the body of the organism, and then the flagellum is a whip-like structure that propels the organism. It gives or it aids the movement of euglena. And then we have chloroplast, which is an organelle in the cell of the organism. It is responsible for the ability of the organism to carry out photosynthesis because it produces chlorophyll. So the answer to our question here is the eye spot. The eye spot is the organ that is very sensitive to light in the body of an organism or in the body of euglena. So our answer to question 3 is option D. That is our answer, option D. So we'll move to question 4. The organelles present in cells that are actively respiring and photosynthesizing are A. Lysosomes and ribosomes, B. Golgi apparatus and endoplasmic reticulum, C. Nucleus and centrioles, and then D. We have mitochondria and chloroplast. We need to understand the functions of all of these. Let's see the ones we can quickly talk about. So let me put a note down here for that. Talking about the first one, which is the lysosome. Lysosomes. Lysosomes help to break down unwanted materials. They help to break down unwanted material in the body of an organism. Breaks down unwanted materials. In the cell. That is basically what lysosomes are. And then let me just mention other materials. We have nucleus, for example. Nucleus is responsible for bearing the hereditary materials. It carries or bears the hereditary materials, talking about the DNA. We have other ones like the ER, which is the endoplasmic reticulum. They are of two types, rough and smooth endoplasmic reticulum. Rough or smooth. So their function basically is to synthesize protein, for protein synthesis. Calcium storage, for example. Calcium storage, and they can also help in metabolism of lipid. Let's see other ones that we can talk about. Let's pick ribosomes, for example. Ribosome is another, even though it is not in our options, it is also another organelle that is found in the cell. It also synthesizes proteins. Protein synthesis. We talk about the mitochondria. Which serve as the powerhouse, powers the cell. It powers the cell. Golgi apparatus, Golgi bodies, Golgi apparatus. It helps to sort proteins, sorting of proteins, and so on. So there are so many organelles that we don't have time to actually talk about all of them. But looking at our question here, it says that the organelles present in cells and that are actively respiring and photosynthesizing are, looking at the one that photosynthesizes. Since we are talking about photosynthesis, it makes us understand that it is talking about plant cell, because it is only plants that have the ability to photosynthesize. So talking about plant cell, it is only the chloroplast that can photosynthesize. So option D. And then respiration here is talking about the ability of an organism to actually respire, to carry out respiration. And so that is option D, which is mitochondria and then chloroplast. So our answer to question 4 is option D. And so question 5 now. Taniasolium can be found in A. Cow, B. Goat, C. Dog, and D. Pig. The Tania solium actually talks about a particular organism that is found in an organism. So it is a parasite, so to say. So where is it actually found? The answer to that question is D, which is pig. But let us quickly understand what it is. When we talk about Tania solium, we are talking about the tapeworm. That is the scientific name of the tapeworm, the Tania solium, as seen here. Tania solium, that is the scientific name of the tapeworm. So let us quickly, I've told us that it is found in the pig. So let us quickly say a few things about the Tania solium. When we talk about the Tania solium, for example, okay, let me just put it here. The Tania solium, that is the scientific name for tapeworm, majorly found in the pigs. Now, the Tania solium results to two conditions. We have the taniasis as well as the cysticercosis. Results to two conditions. The first one, I said we have the taniasis. So what is taniasis? It is an intestinal infection that is caused by this particular organism when it is being consumed. So it is an intestinal infection caused by the consumption of undercooked or contaminated or infected pork meat, which is the meat from a pig. So that is how we can actually get the taniasis. So it is an intestinal infection. And then we said the second one now, the second condition, we call it the cysticercosis. Because it is actually from the cyst or the eggs. So it is cysticercosis. That is the name of this condition. And then it is found when somebody consumes the eggs of this tapeworm. That is what results to the cysticercosis. Now, when the cyst grows in the brain, for example, because it affects different organs of the body, but let us assume we are talking about the brain. If it grows in the brain, cyst in the brain, the cyst of this Tania solium in the brain, cyst in the brain is what we refer to as you can see the name now, neurocysticercosis. That is the name when the cyst is found in the brain. So that is what it is called. So the two conditions, we have the taniasis as well as the cysticercosis. So when the cyst is found in the brain, it forms what we refer to as the neurocysticercosis. So that is basically what it is. So question 5 is option D. So let's move to the next question now, which is question 6. Question 6 says the structure labeled 2 is the, in this organism there here that we have here, the structure labeled 2, which is this part here, it said is the what? A, the spermatical pore, B, the cocoon, C, the clitellum, and D, the chitate. Actually, this is an organism which is an annelid. So this structure here, the portion labeled 2 here in this organism is actually the clitellum. That is the answer to that question. Option C for number 6, the clitellum. 6 is option C. So we move to 7. Now looking at this structure very well, the question there says the organism is found in soils rich in option A, mud, B, humus, clay, and then sand. This organism that is found here, they said it is found mostly in what kind of soil? Mud, humus, clay, and sand. It is actually found in the humus soil because it is responsible for creating or making it possible for the soil to be aerated, as well as giving the soil necessary requirements. So it is found mostly in humus soil, a soil type that is very good for planting. So that is the answer to question 7, option B. Option B. Then question 8. Which of the following describes a characteristic of arthropods? A. The organism finds it easy to grow freely. B. The organism has a pair of jointed appendages. C. The body is not divided into a number of segments. And D. The body is covered by chitin. Arthropods are organisms that are basically the invertebrates. They are non-chordates. They do not have backbones. So example of the characteristic that they have for this particular arthropod here, they said the option A there says the organisms find it easy to grow freely. No, that is not a characteristic of that organism. And then B says the organism has a pair of jointed appendages. No, they have more than a pair of jointed appendages. And then C says the body is not divided into number of segments. Actually, the body is divided into segments. So the answer to that question is D, that the body is covered by chitin. Yes, arthropods majorly have their body covered by chitin. So that is the answer to question 8. Question 8 there is option D. And then we move to question 9. Which of the following distinguishes a butterfly from a moth? A. The wings of butterfly rest horizontally, but those of moth rest vertically. B. Both are active during day. C. They have similar antennae. And then D there says the abdomen of moth is fatter than that of the butterfly. Actually, the answer to our question is A. The wings of butterfly rest horizontally, but those of the moth rest vertically. That is the answer to the question 9 there. The wings of the butterfly rest horizontally, but those of the moth rest vertically. Both of them are active during the day, so that is basically not a distinguishing feature. And that they have similar antenna is also not a distinguishing feature, because we need to look at the differences when we talk about distinguishing factors. The option D there says the abdomen of moth is fatter than that of the butterfly. That is not necessarily true or correct. So the answer, and that one, the one that has a distinguishing feature that differentiates between a butterfly and a moth, is the positioning of their wings. For A, which is the butterfly, the wings of butterfly rest horizontally and those of the moth rest vertically. That is the answer to question 9. So question 9 there, option A. And then we move to question 10. Question 10 says, we have a question to look this way. The question says, which of the following types of feathers is used for flight in birds? A. Quill. B. Phyloplume. C. Covert. D. Down. Now, we have so many types of feathers, but basically the one that is responsible for flight is the one this question is looking for, and that is actually the quill feather. The quill feather is a feather that is responsible for flight. It is called the flight feather. We have other types of feathers, like I said earlier on. We have the contour feather that is responsible for protection. We have the down feather or the phyloplume, as well as the semiplume. Those ones are responsible for insulation of the body of the organism. So that makes the answer to our question 10 to be the quill feather. That is the flight feather in the birds. So question 10 is option A. So going to question 11 now. Question 11. The plants that grow in deserts or very dry areas are referred to as A. Mesophytes, B. Hydrophytes, C. Epiphytes, and D. The xerophyte. Here we are looking at organisms' ability to respond or react to water. That is basically what this question is talking about. So we have classification of organisms in respect to how they react or respond to water in their environment. So their affinity for water classifies organisms into 3. We have 1. We have the hydrophytes. The hydrophytes. Hydrophytes are organisms that are water loving. Organisms that are water loving, those are the hydrophytes. We have the second set of organisms, which are the mesophytes. These are organisms that survive in environments with moderate amount of water, moderate amount of water. We have the third set of organisms, which are the xerophytes. Xerophytes are organisms that are water hating. Water hating. Now, I quickly need to explain something here. When we actually talk about water loving, it means the organism survives in an environment that has surplus or abundance of water. So in such organisms can survive in an environment which is actually flooded. But when we talk about the xerophytes, they are organisms that do not survive in environments that have too much water. They are oftentimes found in environments, these organisms are found in environments that lack water, such as desert lands. That is where we find xerophytes. Example is a cactus. A cactus is an example of a xerophyte. Is an example there. So when we look at that particular question there, the answer to that question, the plant that grow in deserts are actually the xerophytes, option D. So question 12 now. Which of the following is the simplest living organism? A. Paramecium. B. Virus. C. Amoeba. D. Chlamydomonas. Now the simplest of these ones here is the amoeba, because it is a monera. We have different classifications of organisms when we talk about their kingdoms. So basically we have 5 kingdoms. We have the kingdom monera. Let me put them this way. We have monera. 2, we have protista. 3, we have fungi. 4, we have plantae. And the last one there, which is the 5th one, that is kingdom animalia. So amoeba falls into this group here, which is the monera. That is where we have the amoeba. So the paramecium, virus, chlamydomonas, they are found in other groups. So the one with the least or the simplest classification is the amoeba. So that is option C. So we move to question 13. Proboscis is a structure that is mostly found in, majorly they are found in insects. It is the straw-like material that they insert into organism in which they feed upon to actually suck, because this proboscis, like I said, is a straw-like material, so it is actually used to suck food materials in form of liquid. So they are actually possessed by fluid feeders. The proboscis are actually possessed by fluid feeders. So they feed on fluidy substances, and that is why they make use of their proboscis. So the answer to that question is option A. Option A. So question 14 now. The structural adaptation of desert plants for water conservation is A. Broad leaves with numerous stomata. B. Spongy mesophyll. C. Spiny leaves. And D. Prominent stomata in leaves. Now, when we say desert plants, these are organisms that do not have the ability to actually carry out much of what we refer to as transpiration. They must not lose too much water to their surrounding, because they are in an environment that is deficient of water already. So they have found a system of adapting to that environment, and that is by reducing their leaves to spines. So their adaptive structure there, or their structural adaptation to that environment, is the possession of spiny leaves. So that is basically what that particular answer is for question 14, option C. And then question 15 now. The long and sharp clawed feet of birds is an adaptation for A. Crushing seeds, B. Scooping mud, C. Tearing flesh, and D. Grasping prey. When we look at the claws of such organisms to be long and sharp, it is responsible for actually tearing flesh. We have the feet. It is long and it is sharp, so they actually use it to tear flesh. That is what the adaptation for that organism is. So that is what they use it for. Option C. If it were to be used for crushing seeds, it would be talking about the beaks, but this time around we are talking about the feet, so it is actually for tearing flesh. That is option C. And then number 16. During the manufacture of food by plants, which of the following organisms use energy from the sun? A. Anabena, B. Sulfobacteria, C. Nitrosomonas species, and D. Nitrobacter species. The answer to this question is the Anabena. The Anabena is the organism that is responsible for using energy from the sun during production of food. So that is the answer to question 16, option A. And then we have question 17. The movement of minerals and chemical compounds within, please, this is supposed to be within. Here we are supposed to be having within. So again, the question says movement of minerals and chemical compounds within a plant occurs during A. Osmosis, B. Translocation, C. Transpiration, and D. Diffusion. So the movement of materials and chemical compounds is the translocation of the food from one point to another. So the answer is actually translocation. So that is option B for question 17. It is not option A, because when we look at option A is talking about movement of water alone, because osmosis is just the movement of water molecule from a region of lower concentration to a region of higher concentration through a semi-permeable membrane. And if you talk about transpiration, it is the removal of water from the body of the plant, losing of water from the body of the plant to the surrounding. And diffusion talks about the movement of materials, be it solids, liquids, or gases, from a region of higher concentration to a region of lower concentration, until there is an even distribution in the body of such organisms. So that is basically what other options they are talking about. So the answer to our question, like we have picked, is option B for question 17. So question 18 says the enzyme that is present in the saliva is A. Renin, B. Lipase, C. Pepsin, and D. Thiolin. The answer is option D. It is not renin, because renin, lipase, and pepsin, they are all found in the stomach. Renin and pepsin are produced in the stomach, while lipase is produced in the small intestine, in the pancreas of the small intestine. That is where we have the production of the lipase. So all other ones are secreted in the stomach. It is only the thiolin that is secreted in the mouth, in the saliva. And what is the function of the thiolin? Let me put it here. Thiolin acts on starch. So it converts starch to starch is being acted upon by thiolin. That reaction is actually an hydrolytic reaction. So hydrolysis. So starch is acted upon by thiolin, converting it to what we refer to as maltose before the food goes down the throat into the stomach to continue its phase of digestion. So the answer there is option D. Option D. So we have question 19 now. Plants that have special devices for trapping and digesting insects are A. Carnivorous, B. Symbiotic, C. Parasitic, and D. Saprophytic. If you look at that particular question very well, the answer is glaring. It is staring us in the eye. Looking at it now, it says plants that have special devices for trapping and digesting insects are A. Carnivorous, B. Symbiotic, C. Parasitic, and D. Saprophytic. They are plants and they feed on organisms, they feed on insects, so they are actually carnivorous in nature. It is not symbiotic, nor is it parasitic or saprophytic. It is carnivorous. So they are carnivorous plants. So that is option A. And then we have question 20. The process of transforming the chemical energy of cellular fuels into high energy bonds of ATP in plants is A. Autotrophism, B. Photosynthesis, C. Photolysis, and D. Respiration. It is not autotrophism, photosynthesis, or photolysis. Autotrophism is talking about organisms that have the ability to manufacture their food by themselves. So the process is what we refer to as autotropism. So autotrophs are organisms that can manufacture their food by themselves. So the process of manufacturing their food by themselves is what we refer to as autotropism. And then we have photosynthesis, which is a type of autotropism here. We have two types of autotropism or autotrophic feeding. Let me quickly write that here. Autotropism is the ability of organisms, majorly the green plants, to manufacture their food, by themselves. That is basically what autotropism is. So I said we have two types. We have two types. The first one, we have photosynthesis, which is actually the use of solar radiation or energy from the sun with nutrients in the soil and water by the plants to manufacture their food. And then the second one is the chemosynthesis. So those are the two examples. Chemosynthesis talks about the use of chemicals to produce their food. So those are the two types of autotropism. So photolysis is actually a type of photosynthesis. In photolysis we have, let me put it here again, we have photosynthesis to be divided into two. We have the light phase, and then the dark phase. The light phase occurs during the day, while the dark phase occurs during the night. So in the light phase there, we have what is referred to as photolysis. And what is photolysis? Photolysis is simply talking about splitting of water into its molecule. That is basically what photolysis is talking about. So we have H2O, for example, being split into hydrogen ion and hydroxyl ion. That is basically what photolysis is talking about. So those are not our options for this particular question. The answer to our question is option D, which is respiration. Question D is respiration. So moving forward to 21 now. Fungi are referred to as heterotrophs because this is supposed to be heterotrophs. So let's be mindful of that. Fungi are referred to as heterotrophs because they are filamentous, B, lack chlorophyll, C, have mycelium, and D, lack roots. Now when we look at that particular question, fungi, they are heterotrophs because they lack chlorophyll. This is a similar question that was answered in Jamb 2012. Fungi, okay, is plant like quite alright? Fungi are plant-like substances, materials. They are plant-like organisms that lack chlorophyll. Plant-like organisms that lack chlorophyll. Now, hence they absorb their food from dead organic matter. So it is because they lack chlorophyll. Okay, talking about them being heterotrophs now. That is what I'm trying to say now, that they absorb their own food. Since they lack chlorophyll, they are unable to produce their food by themselves, so they are not autotrophs. So hence they absorb their food absorb their food from dead organic matter. From dead organic matter. That is how they get their own food. So they are actually heterotrophic organisms. They do not have the ability to produce their food by themselves. So that is what they are. So the answer to that question is option B. Option B. 22 now. An example of a parasitic protozoan is A. Paramecium, B. Plasmodium, C. Euglena, and then D. Chlamydomonas. If you look at all of these ones here, the one that is a parasitic protozoan is the Plasmodium. Plasmodium is the parasitic protozoan that we have here. All other ones are organisms that are actually, some of them are protists, while some of them are fungus. But this one here, the parasitic protozoan in this particular option is the Plasmodium. Plasmodium is an example of the substance that results to malaria in the body of humans. So it is Plasmodium. That's the answer to that particular question. Question 22, option B. So moving to 23 now. Which body cells are involved in the immune response of vertebrates? We have the phagocytes, the lymphocytes, the erythrocytes, and then the monocytes. Which body cells are involved in the immune response of vertebrates? Now, we have to be very careful in answering this particular question, because when we talk about the immune system, we're actually talking about the body defense mechanism. And basically, that is a function of the white blood cell. That is where we have WBC, components of the blood. Components of the blood. So number one, we have the red blood cell, which is also called the erythrocyte. Its major function is to oxygenate the blood. Oxygenates the blood. And then we have the second one, which is the WBC. That is the leukocyte. Defense mechanism. Defense mechanism of the body. We have the third one to be the blood platelet or the thrombocyte. The blood platelet or the thrombocyte, responsible for blood clots. Clotting of the blood, that is its own function. And then the only liquid component that we have in the blood is the blood plasma. Every other ones are solid corpuscles, but this last one is in liquid form. Now, talking about the leukocyte, the defense mechanism, it is responsible for the immune system. So the leukocytes now, the leukocytes, they are divided into two. We have the phagocytes. And the lymphocytes. The phagocytes actually kill and engulf invaders of the body. Any disease or any germ that comes to invade the body falls victim of the phagocytes, because the phagocytes will kill them. And then they feed on these dead decaying organisms, or dead or invading bacteria. And so that process is referred to as phagocytosis. We call that process phagocytosis. The process where the phagocytes eat up or they engulf the dead cells. Now, another leukocyte, which is another defense mechanism, is a lymphocyte. Lymphocytes are responsible for producing antibodies. They produce antibodies. Production of antibodies. So if there are any invaders that are trying to invade the body, they come in contact with these toxic materials called the antibodies, and then they are immediately killed by the poisons of the lymphocytes. So these two substances are also part of the immune system. But the one that is actually responsible for our immunity, that must be up at all time, is the monocytes. The monocytes are part of the immune system that is actually responsible. It must remain very vibrant, else the body falls. So that is the answer to our question there, the monocytes, option D. So we'll move to 24 now. The blood circulatory system of vertebrates consists of A. Heart, arteries, capillaries and veins. Heart, aorta, capillaries and veins. Heart, aorta, arteries and veins. Heart, vena cava, arteries and veins. Now, I love explaining that particular question this way, talking about circulation of blood in the body of an organism. So this is how I explain it. Heart, and then the blood goes out of the heart through a particular type of cell organelle called the arteries. And then from the arteries it branches severally into different smaller vessels called the arterioles. Now these arterioles branches into what is referred to as the capillaries. You can have branching into the capillaries, and then the capillaries branches also, or they try to form what we refer to as the venules. And then these venules also lead to what we refer to as the veins. So multiple venules form what we refer to as the veins, and then the veins go back to the heart. So this is the system of circulation that is found in the body of an organism. So the answer to our question, from what we can see there, we have heart, which is 1, we have arteries 2, we have capillaries 3, and then we have veins to be the 4th one. So that is our answer, option A. Heart, arteries, capillaries and veins. Option A is our answer. And then 25. A plant tissue that carries water and mineral salt is the A. Cambium, B. Xylem, C. Cortex and D. Phloem. In the plant tissue we have the vascular bundles. That are responsible for transporting or translocating materials. The vascular bundles. And basically there are two. We have the xylem and the phloem. Xylem transports water and other materials from the roots to the upper parts of the plant, to the plant's upper parts, of the plant, while the phloem transports nutrients from leaves to storage sites. That is what the phloems do. So the answer to that question is the xylem. The xylem is responsible for carrying water and mineral salts from the soil to the upper part of the plant. So 25 is option B. 26 now. Which of the following helps in the clotting of blood? I just made mention of that while I was talking about the components of the blood. It is not the red blood cell, because its own function is to oxygenate the blood. It is not the white blood cell or the leukocyte, because their own function is to help prevent the body against invaders. It is also not the plasma, because the plasma is the liquid component of the blood. So the answer there is the blood platelet, which is also called the thrombocyte. That is option D. And then we have question 27. Which of the following forms about 55% of the volume of the blood in man? Looking at this here now, they have given us a clue talking about volume here. Volume is actually talking about liquid, but let's assume we do not understand that. But the answer there is a plasma. It is not any other component than the plasma. The plasma makes up 55% of the volume of the blood. So that is of. And then question 28. The part of the mammalian skin involved in excretion is the A. Sweat gland, B. Malpighian layer, C. Sebaceous gland, and D. Horny layer. Now we need to understand what the functions of each of these are. What do we mean by the sweat gland? Sweat gland is actually responsible for storing sweat. Helps to store sweat until there is a need for it to be excreted from the body. And then we have other ones like the Malpighian layer. The Malpighian layer, its own function is to protect the body. So it is a protective sheet. Malpighian layer is a protective sheet that is found in the body. We have the sebaceous gland. Sebaceous gland, and its own function is to produce sebum. To produce sebum, that is its own function, to produce or to secrete sebum. To produce or secrete sebum. And then we have the last one to be the horny layer. The horny layer. The horny layer is responsible for controlling water loss to the surrounding. Horny layer controls water loss to the surrounding. That is what the horny layer is talking about. So the actual one that is responsible for acting as an excretory organelle is the sweat gland. The answer to the question is sweat gland. That is question 28, option A. 29. Which of the following is a waste product of an insect? A. Alkaloids, B. Uric acid, C. Sweat, and D. Mucilage. Now we have organisms that excrete their nitrogenous waste in different forms. Nitrogenous wastes. We have those that excrete theirs in form of ammonia. Such organisms are called ammonotelic organisms. They are called ammonotelic organisms. Example is where we have the Pisces. We have the Pisces in this group here. They are called ammonotelic organisms. We have the second set of organisms that excrete theirs in form of uric acid. Those ones are called the uricotelic organisms. The uricotelic organisms. Example, we have the ants, we have the birds. They excrete their own nitrogenous waste in form of uric acid. And then we have the last set, those that excrete theirs in form of urea. They are called ureotelic organisms. So example, we have man in this class here. Man excretes their own nitrogenous waste in form of urea. So the organisms that we are looking for excrete theirs in form of uric acid. 9. Option B. And then we have question 30. The main structure in vertebrates that support and protect the body is the A. Skeleton, B. Ligament, C. Muscle, D. Joint. Now, it is the skeleton, because the skeleton is a rigid framework that gives shape, rigidity, and support to the body of an organism. Skeleton is a rigid framework that gives shape, structure, protection to the body of an organism. So that is the answer to our question. It is not the ligament, nor is it the joint, nor is it the muscle. The answer is the skeleton. So we move to question 31 now. The chitin in the exoskeleton of many arthropods is strengthened by A. I think this is supposed to be lipids. B. Proteins. C. Calcium compounds. And D. Organic salts. Now, this question is very tricky, so you need to be very careful while answering it. The question there is talking about the strengthening capability of the exoskeleton. It is not talking about what formed the exoskeleton or what the skeleton is rich in. So what strengthens it? Like the bones of the skeleton are strengthened by calcium, the chitin is also strengthened by calcium compounds, even if it is rich in proteins. It is the chitins that are rich substances. They are substances that are rich in proteins, but they are strengthened by the calcium compounds. So that is the answer to 31 question there, option C. And then 32. The transfer of pollen grains from the anther to a stigma. This is stigma, please. The transfer of pollen grains from the anther to a stigma is A. Propagation, B. Placentation, C. Pollination, and D. Fertilization. Now, please, the answer here is pollination, but let us quickly understand what other processes there, what they talk about. What do we mean by propagation? Propagation is actually talking about the ability of an organism to be produced from a parent organism. So propagation is the breeding of specimens of an organism. Breeding of organisms by natural processes. By natural processes from a parent organism. That is basically what propagation is talking about. And then when we look at placentation, placentation is talking about the attachment of ovules inside the ovary. The attachment of ovules inside the ovaries. So that is what placentation is talking about. And we have different types of placentation. Example, we have the axial placentation that is found in tomato. Basically, we have 5 types of placentation. We have axial, we have the marginal. Marginal is found in the legumes. Marginal, found in legumes. We have parietal, for example, parietal. This one is found in pawpaw. The fourth one, we have the basal. We have the basal placentation. This one is found in maize, for example. We have the fifth one to be free central, like those that are found in watermelon. So those are different examples of placentation. And then we have the next one. We said pollination is the transfer of mature pollen grains from an anther to the stigma. Now we have 2 types. One, okay, let me say types. We have the first one to be self-pollination, where the pollen grains come from the anther of a particular plant and it goes to the stigma of the same plant. And the second one is called cross pollination. In cross pollination, the pollen grains come from the anther of a particular plant to the stigma of another plant. That is what differentiates those two. You're talking about self-pollination and cross-pollination. Self-pollination, the pollen grains come from the anther of the plant and then it goes to the stigma of the same plant. While cross-pollination, the anther produces the pollen grains and then sends them to the stigma of another plant when it is actually pollinated. So we have agents of pollination that carry out pollination or that makes pollination possible. Agents of pollination, basic examples, we have water, we have wind, we also have animal or human interventions. So those are the basic examples of the agents of pollination. And then the last one talks about the ability of the organism to actually carry out fertilization. That is what the last option there is talking about. Fertilization is the process by which the mature male gamete fuses with the mature female gamete. That is basically to produce a zygote. Embryo. That is basically what fertilization is talking about. So we can now see that the answer to our question there is option C. 33 now. The male reproductive organ of a flower is the A. carpel, B. stamen, C. petal, and D. sepal. The answer there is stamen. Stamen is the male reproductive organ of a flower plant. Stamen is the male reproductive organ of a flower plant. So that is option B. Option B is the answer to question 33. I will move to question 34 now. The gland that is found just below the hypothalamus is the A. parathyroid, B. adrenal, C. pituitary, D. thyroid. The answer to that question is the pituitary gland, because that is the only gland that is found in the head that is close to the hypothalamus. The parathyroid and the thyroid gland, they are found in the neck region, and the adrenal gland is found directly above the kidney. So the answer is the pituitary gland. That is option C. So question 35 there says the most important plant hormone is A. cytokinin, B. abscisic acid, C. auxin, and D. gibberellin. The answer there is option C, which is auxin. But perhaps we don't know the answer. Let us quickly look at the functions of these major plant hormones. We have auxin. Auxin, we said it promotes cell growth and elongation. Promotes cell growth and elongation. And then we have the next one, cytokinin. We have cytokinin. Cytokinin is also responsible for cell division. Is responsible for cell division. And then enlargement, cell division, cell enlargement, and then shoot, we have it to be shoot initiation. It initiates the shoots. We have other examples like we have the abscisic acid. Abscisic acid, its own function is to promote seed dormancy. Promotes seed dormancy as well as adaptive responses and adaptive responses. We have other examples like we have the gibberellin. I think that is also part of our options. Gibberellin is responsible for plant growth and then organ development. It promotes plant growth and organ development. Other examples like ethylene, that is another type of plant hormone. Ethylene is responsible for regulation and stimulation of opening the flowers. It regulates and stimulates opening of flowers. And then fruit ripening and then wilting. So what is wilting? Wilting is naturally talking about dropping of leaves. So all of these plant hormones they are very important, but the most important of them all happens to be the auxin. That is the most important of the plant. So that is our answer, option C. So talking about question 36 now. The sensory cells that respond to dim light is referred to as the A. Cone, B. Lens, C. Rod, and D. Iris. Those are the options that we have there. So what is the answer to our question? We need to understand the functions of these ones here. So what is the function of the cone? The cones give color visions. Cones. The cones in the cornea provides color visions. So the ability to differentiate between colors is the function of the cones. Let's see what the lens is. The lens transmits light and focuses it on the retina. Transmits light and focuses it on the retina. That is the function of the lens. We have the eye iris. Its own function is to open and close the pupil. It opens and closes the pupil. That is the function of the iris. We have the rod. And we have so many rods in our eyes, over 92 millions in the human eye. So their function is to detect, it detects dim light. It detects dim light used for peripheral and night vision. Used for peripheral and nighttime vision. And nighttime vision. We also have other functions like the function of the pupil. The pupil, it permits light into the eyes. Permits light into the eye. We have the cornea. The cornea that refracts light. The cornea refracts light and then it helps for focusing and helps to focus. These are examples of parts of the eye. So the part that is responsible for dimming light is the rod. Let's see what question 37 is saying. The absence of antidiuretic hormone in humans results in A. Decreasing dehydration, B. Drastic dehydration, C. Eliminating dehydration, and D. Increasing dehydration. Those are the options that we have for this particular question. Now, in order to understand this particular part of the question, we need to understand the function of the ADH, that is the antidiuretic hormone. Majorly, its function is controlled by the pituitary gland. A message sent to the adrenal gland. Now, the major function is to prevent water loss, so that the body of the organ, the kidney, is able to reabsorb water, to carry out reabsorption, because the inefficiency of the kidney to carry out reabsorption of water can result to what we refer to as diabetes insipidus. So the major function of the antidiuretic hormone is to prevent water loss. Now, the absence of the diuretic hormone in humans will result in increasing dehydration. When the person has lost water to the surrounding, when the kidney is unable to reabsorb water back into the system, there is going to be increase in dehydration. The body starts to dehydrate rapidly. So that is the answer to that particular question, question 37. So we have question 37 to be option D. And then we have question 38 now. Estrogen is a hormone that is synthesized in the A. ovaries, B. testes, C. anterior pituitary, and D. adrenal cortex. Now, estrogen is a particular hormone that is produced in the females. The hormone that is produced, that is responsible for the commencement of estrous cycle. That is what estrogen is. Actually, in the females, we have more than one gonad hormone. So the gonad hormones that we have, gonad hormones in the males, we have it to be just one, and that is testosterone. And its major function is to produce sperm cells. For the production of sperm cells, for the production of sperm cells, or the spermatozoa. So that is what we have in the males. While in the females, they are of two types. The first one is estrogen, which is responsible for commencement of estrous cycle. Responsible for the commencement of the estrous cycle. That is a monthly flow. And then another function of it is that it prepares the body for pregnancy. It prepares the body for pregnancy. That is another function of the estrogen there, as we can see it. Now, we have the other hormone. Okay, let me call this one A, or 1. So we have the two functions there. And then 2 now. 2. We have second one to be called progesterone. Now the progesterone is responsible, first function, responsible for preparing the body for delivery. This particular hormone is produced when the body is already under gestation. That is when the body is already pregnant, when the organism is already carrying a fetus in the body. That is when progesterone is produced. So its function is to prepare the body for delivery. Another function is that it makes the mammary gland start to produce milk, for the production of milk. Prepares the mammary gland for milk production. Now, when we talk about the progesterone responsible for preparing the body for delivery, the major thing it does there is that it helps to strengthen the muscles of the walls of the vagina and the cervix to make it easier for the baby to be delivered. That is those are the functions of the progesterone. So this estrogen is actually produced in the ovary. That is where the estrogen is being produced. So that is what our question is actually talking about. The estrogen is a hormone that is synthesized in the, our answer is A, ovary. A. And then we go to 39. The eye defect caused by the development of cloudy areas in the lens is A, presbyopia, B, glaucoma, C, cataract, and D, astigmatism. These are all different types of eye defects, but they all have different causes and different characteristics. So let us quickly look at a couple of these eye defects. Let's understand them. Presbyopia. What is presbyopia? It is a gradual age-related inability of the eye to focus on near objects. Is a gradual age-related inability of the eye to focus on near objects. So such a person, such an individual, the aged that is having presbyopia will only be able to see far objects clearly or clearer. The person will not be able to see objects that are in close proximity very well. So that is the presbyopia. Let us look at the cataract. What is cataract? Cataract is the clouding of the clear lens. Is the clouding of the clear part of the lens, clear portion of the lens of the eye, the lens of the eye. That is what cataract is. It is the clouding of the clear portion of the eye. And then we have the next one to be glaucoma. Glaucoma is a collection of different eye defects that affect the optic nerve at the back of the eye. Glaucoma is a collection or group of eye defects that affects the optic nerve, which is actually the nerve that is responsible for conveying sight messages to the brain. So that they attack the optic nerve at the back of the eye. That is what the glaucoma is. And then we have astigmatism, the last one in our option there, astigmatism. So when we look at astigmatism, it is an imperfection in the curvatures of the eye that causes blurred vision. Astigmatism is an imperfection found in the curvatures of the eye, that causes blurred vision, that causes or results to blurred vision. So basically those are these are a few of the examples of eye defects. We have others like the short-sightedness, long-sightedness, and others. So short-sightedness is the inability of an individual to see far away objects that are in a distance. The person can only see objects that are close by. That is for short-sightedness, and it can be corrected using a particular kind of lens that is called the concave lens. And for long-sightedness, the person is able to see objects that are long-sighted, objects that are far away. The person cannot see objects that are in close proximity. and such can be corrected using the convex lens. So those are examples of eye defect. So for the question that we were asked, we now understand that cataract is the answer to the question, which is the clouding of the clear portion of the lens of the eye. So cataract, which is option C, is the answer to question 39. Option C. And then we move to question 40. A pollutant that is biodegradable is A. Crude oil, B. Heavy metal, C. Cellophane, and D. Sewage. What this question is talking about is which of these options here is possible to actually carry out a kind of transformation on that can be used in other forms, or that can be used to generate other types of energy. So not crude oil, it is not heavy metal, it is not cellophane, but sewage can be converted into biogas and biomaterial. So sewage is the answer to this particular question because it is biodegradable. So that is the answer to question 40, option D. Alright, so picking question 41 now. A tropical disease caused by trypanosoma is A. Sleeping sickness, B. River blindness, C. Yellow fever, and D. Malaria. Now, sleeping sickness is caused by a particular type of vector that is called tsetse fly, and it is transmitting a pathogen called the trypanosoma. So that is the particular question that we are asked. So the disease that it results to is what we refer to as sleeping sickness. Sleeping sickness. So other diseases here that are found here: river blindness, yellow fever, malaria. Let's quickly see what their causative organisms are. Sleeping sickness. Sleeping sickness is caused by or transmitted by tsetse fly. It's transmitted by tsetse fly. Then we have river blindness. River blindness that is transmitted by the Culex mosquito. Culex mosquito. We have yellow fever. Yellow fever or dengue fever. This one is transmitted by the Aedes mosquito. We also have malaria. Those are the options that we have there. Malaria is transmitted by the Anopheles mosquito, the female Anopheles mosquito. So those are the different vectors for the diseases that we have. Tsetse fly is responsible for transmitting the trypanosoma. Then which causes sleeping sickness. River blindness is transmitted by the Culex mosquito. Yellow fever is transmitted by Aedes mosquito, and malaria is transmitted by the Anopheles mosquito. The Plasmodium is transmitted by Anopheles mosquito. So those are the options that we have there. So the answer to our question 41, is sleeping sickness. Option A. And then 42 there says the solid part of the ecosystem is referred to as the A. Atmosphere, B. Hydrosphere, B. Biosphere, and D. Lithosphere. When we look at this, we are going back to the ecosystem, and so let us quickly look at them. When we talk about the atmosphere, hydrosphere, biosphere, and lithosphere, explaining it, I will put it this way. I will start with explaining biosphere. Biosphere, because from the biosphere I can bring out others like the atmosphere. I can bring out the lithosphere and then the hydrosphere. So what is this biosphere? Biosphere is the part of the ecosystem that has life, or that accommodates life, that inhabits life. That is what the biosphere is talking about. So in the biosphere now we have the atmosphere, the lithosphere, and the hydrosphere. So we have the atmosphere. We have the atmosphere to be the gaseous part of the biosphere that houses life. That is what the atmosphere is. Then the lithosphere. The lithosphere is the solid part of the ecosystem that accommodates life. That accommodates life. That is the lithosphere. And then we have the hydrosphere. Hydrosphere to be the water bodies or the liquid components, the liquid part of the earth or earth crust that also supports life. That also supports life. So those are the definitions of all of those spheres. So looking at the atmosphere, example, we have the gaseous part of the earth, which is the part above the ground or above the soil surface. Every part above the soil surface makes up the atmosphere, where we have gases like nitrogen, we have gases like oxygen and the rest of those. So that is the atmosphere. Then the lithosphere, we have mountain tops, valleys, hills, etc. And then talking about the hydrosphere, talking about the water bodies like the oceans, we have the rivers, the seas, lakes, lagoons, etc. So those are the water bodies that we have called the hydrosphere. So the question is actually asking us that the solid part of the ecosystem is referred to as the answer to that question is the lithosphere, which is option 2 is D. So we'll move to 43. Which of the following is caused by Treponema palladium? A. Gonorrhea, B. Leprosy, C. Tuberculosis, and D. Syphilis. Now this particular disease here, this pathogen here, is responsible for causing a particular ailment. It is responsible for causing a sexually transmitted infection that is called the syphilis. So the answer is syphilis, option D. So 44 now. To which blood group do universal recipients belong? B, A, O, AB. What the question is telling us that which of these groups here can actually receive blood from any other group. So the answer is AB, because AB can receive blood from blood group A, AB can receive blood from blood group B, AB can receive blood from blood group AB, and it can also receive blood from blood group O. Why? Because blood group AB has no antibody. Blood group AB has no antibody, so it is able to receive blood from any blood group. It only has antigens. It has antigens A and antigen B, but it has no antibody. So that is the answer to that particular question, option D. So question 45 now. The clumping together of red blood cells is A. Agglutination, B. Fusion, C. Transfusion, and D. Compatibility. The answer here is agglutination. Agglutination is the process by which blood cells, particularly the red blood cells, actually form clumps, where they clump together in blood vessels. That is what the red blood cells form. When they form clumps, they form cohesive bonds that cause them to become lumps. So the term is called agglutination. It is not transfusion. Transfusion is the transfer of blood from a donor into a recipient. Then compatibility talks about the ability of organisms to actually have a match. Let me put short notes down for this. When we look at the first thing there, the first option that we have there, option A, talks about agglutination, then fusion. Agglutination is the clumping or solidification of blood cells in the blood vessels. In the blood vessels. So when this happens, it can result to death of the organism. Fusion cannot be used in this condition even if it is talking about the cohesiveness between two substances. Is the bonding of two or more substances. So fusion here is basically used when there is gamete formation. The third one is transfusion. Transfusion is the transfer of blood from donor to recipient. That is basically what transfusion is talking about. And then we have the last one to be compatibility. Compatibility. This is the ability of two individuals the donor and recipient to have a match in their blood type. That is basically what compatibility talks about. The donor and the recipient to have a match in their blood type. So it is not any of the other options that we have seen other than the one that we have talked about, which is agglutination. That is option A. And then we move to question 46. Physiological adaptation to very dry conditions in animals demonstrates A. Rejuvenation, B. Xeromorphism, C. Hibernation, and D. Estivation. Now, when we talk about rejuvenation, is a particular organism coming back to life or being able to come back to original state from which it was found. That is rejuvenation. Being able to come back to form. That is rejuvenation. Then xeromorphism is only seen in plants. It is a form in which that plants possess. Plants that are found in environments that do not have water. Plants are found in environments that do not have water. Such plants are called xerophytes. So the ability of such plants to sustain or to survive in their environment is what we refer to as xeromorphism. And then hibernation is a process that some animals undergo during winter or during shortage of food when they are unable to get food. So what they do is they go into hibernation, shutting down major body processes or functions or metabolism, and then they come back to life when the situation or the conditions are more favorable. That is hibernation. And then the last one there, estivation. Organisms, particularly animals, they undergo estivation when there is dryness or there is drought. This happens majorly during summer when the heat is extreme. So organisms in this environment, they estivate so that they are able to shut down major body processes, and then they come back to life, or they come back to normalcy when the conditions become favorable again. So the answer to this 46th question is option D, which is estivation. And then we have question 47. One of adaptations of Cactus obtusa to conserve water is the reduction of A. Internodes, B. Stems to leaves, B. Leaves to spines, and D. Flower size. Cactus obtusa, they are plants that are grown or that are found majorly in the deserts. They are found in very dry environments that lack water. So these organisms, they are structurally adapted to their environment by reducing all of their leaves to spines. The leaves are major materials that help to carry out transpiration and water loss to the surrounding. And so for these organisms that are found in environments that do not have water, they need not lose water to the surrounding. They have to hold on to the little water that they have in their body, As such, they have reduced their leaves to spines, and that is why cactus or organisms, particularly plants that are found in the desert, they have what? Spikes or spines on them. So that is the answer to question 47. Leaves to spines. C, option C. And then 48. Which of the following structures is adapted for feeding in a bird of prey? A. Hooked beak and sharp claws. Please, this is beak. B. Smooth beak and strong claws. C. Big beaks and strong feet. And D. Pointed beak and strong claws. If the bird is a predator, then it means it feeds on animals. Such organism, such bird will be needing hooked beak and sharp claws. That is what it will be needing. It will be needing hooked beak and sharp claws. The sharp claws will be there to pin the organism, to hold the organism and to pin it down, and then the hooked beak will be responsible for tearing flesh. So answer to that 48 question is option A. And then question 49. The special pigment for color change in chameleon is melanin, carotenoid, chromatin, then chromatophore. Majorly the answer there is melanin, because it is an animal. It is not a plant that would have processed any of the others. So the answer is option A. Melanin is the skin pigmentation that is found in animals. And then the last question there, it says the behavioral adaptation in social insects could best be described as symbiosis, saprophytism, parasitism, commensalism. So this particular question brings us to talk about the types of associations. So we have parasitism. Parasitism is talking about a parasite and a host. Parasite feeding on a host. The parasite is benefiting while the host is losing to that relationship. We have another one called mutualism. Mutualism. In mutualism, the two organisms are benefiting. Both organisms contribute and benefit. Contributes and benefits in the relationship. We have another one called the commensalism. Commensalism. Here, commensal benefits. The commensal benefits from the host, but the host is not losing in this relationship, unlike in parasitism where the host is losing in the relationship. And then we have another one called saprophytism. Saprophytism is a relationship where a saprophyte feeds on dead decaying matter. We also have predation. Where a predator hunts and feeds on the prey. So these are different examples, but there is one that I deliberately did not make mention of, and that is symbiosis, which is actually the relationship that encompasses all of this. It is talking about the relationship between organisms, beneficial relationships between different organisms. But that is symbiosis. So that is the answer to our question. It is not saprophytism, it is not parasitism, it is not commensalism, but it is symbiosis. So the answer to 50th question is option A. So that brings us to the end of this series. I will implore you to try as much as possible to go through the video once again. Try to familiarize yourselves with the questions and the answers that are being given. watch out and listen to the explanations very well, so you will be able to understand them and tackle questions similar to these ones that you have seen or that you have done worked on right now when you come across them again. I wish you success in your exams, and please, I'll encourage us, those of us that are yet to subscribe, please do so. Kindly subscribe to our channel, click on the notification button so that you get easily notified when we upload new content. Also, if you are new to our channel, we will encourage you to try as much as possible to like our contents. Share them with your friends, as it is going to be much beneficial to them as well. Don't forget, we want to hear from you, so please, whatever questions you are free to drop them in the comment section, and we will do well to get back to you soonest on all of them. Thank you very much, and success in your exams. Bye for now.